Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Your Money Your Life podcast. We are currently on episode 228 of the pod, 228. So make sure wherever you're listening, you like, subscribe, 5-star rate, and review the podcast. Also, make sure that you log in on YouTube, hit the notification bell, and subscribe and leave comments there as well. We'll get started. First and foremost, we're going to look into our news update of the day, find out what's going on with current news. But before we even get into current news, I want to touch on the market and give a brief overview on what we're seeing in the market. Right now, we've gotten a lot of information on inflation over the past month, the reports from the past month coming out this month. So producer price index unexpectedly fell. So this information literally just came out, which is incredible. Wholesale prices unexpectedly decreased in May, adding another piece of evidence that inflation is pulling back. So we got the consumer price index numbers earlier this week, and now we're getting the producer price numbers. The consumer price numbers were actually a lot cooler than projections, and so you saw the market, and we'll talk about that. You saw the market react and kind of rise on that news of of consumer price indexes. That was the news that we got recently, and now you're seeing producer price index. The price of producers pay, of course, is now a little bit a decrease, which we haven't seen a decline in how long? It's got to be years. So this reversed a half a point increase in April, and it was the estimate of a point, a tenth of a point increase was the estimate. So this is actually really incredible breaking news right now. This came out 3 minutes ago. If you're listening when I'm recording, which you couldn't be, um, so this is really really interesting news. We'll see how the market reacts. If you're looking at futures right now, it's pre-market up about 0.5% on the S&P 500. So seemingly the market's digesting this information and will react accordingly with this news of producer price index falling in May. Big news, huge news. If you go back and look just in general what the market's been doing, you're seeing really, again, the Fed's forecast. Fed's still saying we're going to fight inflation. They had their meeting minutes, the Jerome Powell press conference. They said they moved from potentially 2 rate cuts in this year to 1 rate cut. We're halfway through the year, so now they're saying there may be 1 rate cut this year. And really, the market is relying on the data that came out for the producer price index, what the Fed is saying, and of course, we got the consumer price index earlier this week as well. So, been strong week for the market. All the data is pointing towards inflation potentially cooling, and that slower downward trajectory, or the rates trajectory going slower. So that's the news that we're seeing there. So we'll keep an eye on it. Again, you saw that the market has reacted in kind over the past month, over the past 5 days, year to date. Has been strong performance so far. So let's actually dive into current news. General job satisfaction gap. So job satisfaction rates appear to be diverging by age, and to a greater degree than they have in the past 15 years. So there was a global workforce report that took from the firm Gallup that found that younger workers are struggling more on a job compared to their over 35 colleagues. When they asked if they were thriving at work, just 31% of people aged 35 or younger responded affirmatively, compared to 36% of people older than 35. This is the largest 5 percentage point gap it's been since 2009. So I'm actually curious on why that would be. I think a few reasons. One, with return to work, some of the younger workers probably more used to being able to work when they want, work remote, and a lot of companies are pushing return to work, and so that might boggle people's satisfaction. I would say just a general age gap. I think there's more of a softness in our younger generation where we um, believe different things as far as how work you should be treated at work and different things of that nature. Whereas the older generation doesn't really see that, and so they may be accustomed to taking on more abuse or more hardship at work than the younger workers. So that's a big thing. Those are my two biggest guesses. We'll see what we're saying from the reporters. Young employees are struggling more than their older colleagues, according to a recent study. It's increase in They see an increase in negative emotions, globally for young people, including loneliness. Oh, interesting. Loneliness. Is that from the work at home? If you're single and you work at home, I guess, and you don't hang out with your colleagues, that would be interesting. I wonder how someone would be able to digest that being single, and then not having colleagues to work with and do things with. That's interesting. Coach USA files for Chapter 11. So I was actually curious what they meant by Coach USA, but they're actually talking about the owner of Megabus and other commuting bus lines in the U.S. and Canada. They're going to seek bankruptcy protection. They are the largest privately owned bus company in the country. Their old creditors between 100 and 500 million. The number of passengers has increased since bottoming out in 2020, but it's still less than half the pre-pandemic level. So Coach, privately owned, largest privately owned megabus commuting charter company in the U.S., Canada, they're filing for bankruptcy protection because they can't make their debts, because it's probably just not that popular as it once was to hop on a bus, in a crowded bus with a bunch of other people, especially since 2020. That's just not a thing that people would want to do when they could maybe take a private car, fly, do different things of that nature. So the numbers aren't mathing here for them, and they're filing for bankruptcy protection. They said their service will not be affected during its reorganization. So the people that are still riding bus, service won't be affected, but they're going to try to file for bankruptcy protection. Private equity firm Variant Equity Advisors bought Coach USA from a UK Stagecoach Group in April 2019. While rideship has partially recovered from the pandemic lows, commuter rideship declined 90% in 2020. Losing 90% of your business in 1 year definitely is not a good thing. So surprised that they've been able to go for that long. So we'll see what happens with that. The Fed. So we just talked about the Fed. They said they had the press conference. They said they're gonna likely cut interest rates just once this year, probably one fourth, 25%, 25 basis points, excuse me, 0.25% is the estimate. Estimates are down from three cuts estimated in March. So before, folks were projecting that the Fed would cut rates three times this year. Now it's looking like they'll potentially cut rates just once this year, and they're going to leave. They left the central our borrowing cost rate at the same rate, 5.24 to 5.5%. That's what it's been for a while, and they're just saying maybe we'll cut rates once. Inflation of 2.8% this year, up from an early estimate of 2.6. That's what their forecast was for the year. Economic growth and unemployment of 2.1% and 4% unemployment, the same projection. So this is the Fed's forecast. They're saying the economic growth will be 2.1% this year and unemployment will get to 4%. This is the same projections they had in March, so nothing changed from March projections. And so we'll see, but the Fed is signaling caution. The Fed is signaling we're not done with inflation. The Fed is signaling all those things while the market's like, hey, we're done. Cut rates. Let's get this party going back again. Let's just do we're in good shape. But that's that the Fed is saying we're not there yet. But this producer price number that just came out, will that change what the Fed is saying? Because you've seen that the futures, CNBC just released an article minute ago, the futures are rising based on the producer price index falling, when economists expected it to increase slightly. This data also comes after the Fed's reserve policy decision, keeping rates unchanged. And they also were saying they will keep the door open for potentially one rate cut this year versus what they had before. So again, lots going on with the Fed Reserve. We'll keep an eye on that, as that's going to be big news for the market going forward. 401k perks. We talked about this. Now they're adding, but the IRS is adding the ability to have your 401k matched if you're paying off student debt, right? And so a company will still have to honor your match if you're paying off student debt. We talked about that previously. Let's jump into other current news, if any. Remember the company Be Real was a photo sharing app where you would just take a picture and time unfiltered wherever you were. Huge during the pandemic, but it had massive traction of college students showcasing real moments. But now they're saying that things are not that great. Um, Growth has dropped off. The French mobile app publisher Voodoo is buying Be Real for about 540K, and the CEO and co-founder will leave the company. So they're being bought for $540,000 after they were a hot app during the pandemic. it was struggling to grow users and running out of cash. It was reportedly searching for a buyer. So they were going out to look for a buyer because, like, hey, we are running out of cash. We can't have any users. And someone just bought it for 540,000. They plan to implement a sustainable model, including bringing ads to Be Real for the first time. Unlike TikTok, Instagram, and other endless scrollable social platforms, Be Real doesn't allow likes. Photos disappear after a day, and users must post to see their other friends' pictures. So that's interesting. They bought for 440,000, 540,000. Nothing else happened with it. Struggled to get users. I hadn't talked about it since the one time I talked about it. I think I downloaded it and then erased it. But we'll keep an eye on that. Again, it's interesting to see. Again, we'll see how much debt. They probably had no debt on the books, but I mean, the buyer, I guess, gets to walk away with 540,000 split between if he had investors prior to he was purchased. I'm assuming they did to get the app off the ground. They probably had at least a friends and family angel round, have to replenish those shareholders, and then whatever's left over that he owned, the percentage of equity will go to him minus taxes. So not great, but it's decent for starting the app. I don't know how long ago he started it, but it hasn't been that long on around. But we'll see. We'll see. WNBA scores record viewership as women's sports takes court. So there's a lot of talk about WNBA with Caitlin Clark coming to the league, Angel Reese coming to the league. Um, so they're increasing viewership. It was up 156% year over year, and stadiums are selling out. You're seeing viewership go up. The league credit stars Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, Kate Martin. They're driving. These are rookies driving the interest in the league. Merch is selling out. It's interesting. I'm actually even a WNBA agent because we see what's happening with basketball related income. It's going to increase. That means whenever the WNBA Players Association and the owners get together and talk about revenue split next time, it's going to be more leverage for the players, and they'll probably they'll have increased salaries after the next time they go to the bargaining table. They will certainly have increased salaries because viewership is up, licensing rights are going to be up, revenue related to basketball for the women is going to be up. So you'll see an increase in salaries soon because they're starting to really make a name for themselves. Hopefully it sustains. That's another thing. Has to sustain. They have to implement these rookies in the right way to make it sustainable and long term for viewers to stay engaged. So we'll see how that goes. Last big story was Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. There was a lot of big things on new features for iOS 18 coming out in fall. I saw some pretty cool tips, tricks, things you'll be able to do with the iPhone when it comes out. Didn't see anything like groundbreaking. They're saying that Siri's getting a makeover. They have an open AI partnership. They're pushing privacy, but there was some cool tips and trips. You could go check it out online what there was, but there was feel cool things you could do when the new operating system comes out in the fall. With that, let's jump into our question of the week and see what we had. I had a few good ones, a few good ones. The first one being, what percentage of your daily activities are habits? So daily activities, what percentage of them are habits? Man, for someone like me, it's probably like literally 70, 80%, I would say. Um, Big habitual person, big schedule, do the same thing mostly every day person. But people, it's probably less, but I think I see the answer being 43% is the answer. About half, a little bit under half of your daily activities are habits. So the things you do daily, mainly 43% of them habits because there's a habit loop. So routine, the habit itself triggers the reward. So you get the feedback that we get. So working out every day triggers the reward. And that signals that triggers the action to do it again. So it's a loop that you just keep going around. And that's why you do these same things every day. Monotony sometimes could drive into people, but that's how we operate. That's literally how we operate as human beings. Question of the day: is it better to pay off the credit card balance over time or all at once? Of course, the answer, this is personal finance question, is all at once. Um, we know this. We want to avoid interest on the credit card payments. We want to avoid having debt pile up. So, of course, we try to pay it off all at once, whether that's monthly for most people or every 2 weeks, whatever you plan to do. That's just how people should go about that. Pretty simple concept there for most people, of course. Of course, with the buy now, pay later, I heard one of the concepts One of the features of the new Apple is going to be Affirm will be able on Apple Wallet, you'll be able to buy now, pay later straight from your phone, which is going to be dangerous for some consumers that don't always budget correctly. We'll see how that goes when that comes up. That's going to be really, really interesting to see if people can handle that. If it goes right to your Apple iPhone, buy now, pay later. That's going to be interesting. Folks, we love when you join us every week. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Pass this to your family and friends. We have a lot more coming up. We do this every week. We will talk very